Well, hello, my fabulous SM3 students. We're getting closer and closer to being done with this semester, this school year. It's pretty exciting. All right, chapter 10.3, collecting data. Do any of you understand this? It's supposed to be funny. Okay, well, if you're a Star Trek fan, this is Data from Star Trek, Next Generation. He also shows up every once in a while in Star Trek Picard, if you're watching that recently. So anyway, haha, very funny. Anyway, that's Data. Okay, so collecting data. In order to organize data and get information from data, we got to collect it first. So let's talk about that a little bit. Okay. So again, as before, I typed up the vocabulary words and they should be attached in Canvas right by these videos. So all you have to do is print it out. If you can't print it out, I do recommend that you write it down and take notes on those. Okay, so steps in a typical statistical study. This is looking at the whole thing, okay? First thing we need to do is, what do you want to know about? You want to know, say you want to know how many people in the school like NASCAR, okay? So you're doing a study on how much kids at Timpview like NASCAR. Okay, choose a sample that represents the population. You're not going to go and just ask the people that take automotive classes. And you're not going to go and just ask people that are in the orchestra. Okay, so you got to have a really good mix. And it needs to be a sample because chances are you're not going to get every single student at Timpview to answer your questions. Okay, collect data, maybe do a survey. Organize and describe the data using a statistic. So, what percentage of kids like it and all that kind of stuff. And what did you learn from the data? Maybe we draw the conclusion that Timpview High School kids, half of them like NASCAR, half of them, I don't know. But today what we're going to focus on is choosing a sample that represents the population and how to collect the data. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. Okay, so we talked about this last time. A sample needs to be a good representation of a population. Like I said before, you're not going to ask just automotive students whether or not they like NASCAR. You got to get different groups, different kinds of people to answer your questions. So a random sample, this is on your vocabulary sheet, is a sample when each member of a population has an equal chance of being selected. Okay, so for example, if I do a survey that's going to represent the school and I only ask my 5th hour math class the questions, then it's not a good random sample because I didn't give anybody else a chance to answer the question. Okay, self-selected sample, when members of a population can volunteer to be in the sample. So I don't know if they ever did this kind of thing here, but I know in Minnesota and in Denver, when we lived there, these people would walk around with these clipboards. They'd walk around and, excuse me, can I ask you some questions? Excuse me, can I ask you some questions? And they would stop you while you were walking around and ask you to do a survey. That would be a self-selected sample because those people are volunteering to do those things. Okay, systematic sample. This is when a rule is used to select members of the population. So this would be like the kids at Timpview are standing in line at lunch and they're going to choose every 5th kid. And they use this rule. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay? Next, we have a stratified sample. And again, if you're having to write these down, pause so you can write them down because you're going to want these. You're going to need these for homework. So do that. Don't think you have to keep up with me talking. Okay, stratified sample. When a population is divided into smaller groups that share a similar characteristic, a sample is then randomly selected from each group. So let's say maybe at Timpview it's the football players. We have a group of football players, and we have a group of we have the choir, and we've got the automotive people, and maybe kids that take AP classes, okay? So we've got these groups of people, and then we just take 5 from this group, and 5 from that group, and 5 from that group. So we get a good mix of demographics and interests and things like that. Okay, cluster sample. When a population is divided into groups like before, but not, with a theme, called clusters, and then all of the members in one or more of the clusters are selected. So basically we're just taking everybody and we're mixing them all up, and we divide them into groups, and then we just pick one of the groups. Okay, so that's a cluster sample. A convenience sample. Unfortunately, this is probably used way too much. But this is when only members of the population who are easy to reach are selected. Okay, so if they're doing surveys over the phone, they're only going to be able to reach the people that answer their phone, and that's convenient. They don't have to try to get people to call them back and things like that. Okay, so example 1, identifying types of samples. So this is just knowing your vocabulary words. All right, so you want to determine whether students in your school like the new design of the school's website. Identify the type of sample described. Okay, so I think this is a good legit question. So A, you list all of the students alphabetically and choose every 6th student. What is that called? What vocabulary word? Well, that would be your systematic sample. You know what? I'm going to write that down. A is systematic. Okay, B. You mail questionnaires and use only the questions that are returned. Okay, this would be a volunteer sample, but it's not called a volunteer sample, it's called self-selected. So these people said, yeah, I'll fill that out and I'll turn that back in. Okay, C. You ask all of the students in your algebra class. Okay, that sounds pretty convenient to me. So this would be a convenience sample. And then D, you randomly select 2 students from each classroom. So you've got kids that are already grouped, okay, they're already grouped, and you take 2 from every group. So what would that be called? Okay, that would be called a stratified sample. Okay, I want you to try this one, okay? So pause right now, this will be the end of this video, but pause it and we will cover this in the next video.